Hello, everyone. Welcome to A Taste of Wellness, free wellness education for your staff, hosted by You Define Wellness. My name is Denise O'Malley, and I'm the founder of You Define Wellness. Every single month, we invite one of the experts in our network to deliver a sample workplace wellness education program for you so that you can get a taste of the variety of different programs that we have available to you. Today, our featured coach is Natalie Forest, Dr. Natalie Forest. Natalie is the owner of Natalie Forest International. I'm not going to go into a long explanation about her because you will discover who she is as she's talking. So with that being said, Natalie, I am going to turn this over to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm glad to be here because stress is a killer. And when we're talking about wellness, I think one of the things that we can quickly do is start looking at what are the things that we have control over. And stress is actually one that, even though it seems we don't have any control, we actually do. And so what I would like to do is I do have a PowerPoint that I will start sharing if it works, because we never know how well or not well it works. And once that is going or not going, that depends. Can anybody see the screen? I don't know. Yeah, okay, good. So we can see it. Thank you for that nodding, because I just want to start briefly out that stress be gone is really important because you have a choice and you can control it. Now, there are lots and lots of things that happen to us, and we can actually turn them around and make them happen for us once we distinguish. So the PowerPoint in my presentation is organized in a quick introduction, the cost of stress, taking a breath, and I misspelled immediate, and the path to stress elimination, as well as some daily action steps. If you have questions in between, please ask. This are these are indicators for stress. So I'm just like to show some of these in case you've ever seen yourself like it, your kids like it, or your colleagues. If you talk to a colleague and they look at you just like the cat, or they always get more coffee, these are all signs of stress. They may not be identified by a doctor as stress, but all of these things, just consider that you are typing and that one button on your keyboard is not doing what you want it to do. You know, sometimes they get stuck. How do you react when that one gets stuck? Those are the reactions that we have. And so I want to start out with something very, very simple, which is the yoga tree posture. And I recommend that you do that every morning before you come to work. And if you've had a stressful drive, which again, you're actually going to be in control of, then do it briefly at work. If you feel funky doing it because you have a group office, then all you need to do is very simple. You are just going to go to the restroom and do it there. Now, the yoga tree posture is not for you to self-judge and be mean to yourself. It is simply to try and calm your senses down, and then to be able to figure out if you're wobbly or not. If you're wobbly, that is okay. If you're wobbly on your right leg, it's okay. If you're wobbly on your left leg, it's okay. What it tells you simply is that you're off balance. Once you know that, once you have that self-awareness, you can move forward towards the day. And so when we're looking at stress, that is the first thing you want to do. When we're looking at indicators or at stress provokers, we have personal and professional. So like I just said, you might be driving into work and you get really, really upset at driving. Are you really getting upset at the drive, or are you getting upset because something at home is going on? Professional. Are you really getting upset at the task or at the keyboard not working? Or are you maybe getting upset because you're not really satisfied with your job, or there's something else going on? In any of those instances, I wanted to make these examples available because you can actually take a stress assessment. When we're stressed, there is a very logical or automated reaction by the body, and that is fight or flight. This fight or flight means that there's a release of adrenaline, and then it has to somehow come out. So once you feel that adrenaline coming, you can do something about it, but you can only do that if you're aware of your body. Individual responses to stress might be emotional reactions like the pictures you saw. It might be that your arm feels really, really weird. It might mean that you're not sleeping. When you understand what the stressful situations are, then you can begin to cope with it. The cost, if you are not addressing stress, are symptoms of poor physical health. Poor physical health directly impacts at home and at work, because if you get consistently sick, that means you have to go to the doctors. That means you cannot come to work. If you cannot come to work, it impacts the team and overall productivity. Coping attempts when somebody is stressed can be alcohol, drug abuse, the blame game, physical violence, etc. That is the emotional and the mental health. Studies have shown that these mental health problems can lead to serious clinical depressions, and of those, about 15% end in suicide. Other forms of that mental anxiety or depression can, of course, be panic attacks. Now, again, the cost of that in the workplace is enormous, but you're also taking it home, and wellness is a holistic approach. The same, of course, goes for, guess what, overeating. So if you're consistently snacking, and right now that we're in this pandemic, a lot of people are sitting down more at the desks, or they're just not sure how to deal with their stress. We see a lot of, especially young kids, gaining a lot of weight. But look around your office, look around your family. Are people gaining weight? If so, this can have absolutely a lot to do right away also with, sorry, I'm trying to look at the chat. Can't see it. Also has to do with the increased blood pressure. All of those are clearly things that we can see, that we can have, and that others might need to pay attention to. So unhealthy living means you are not paying attention to your body, and it impacts from your body all the way out to everybody else, including your job. And this is, of course, if you're thinking about the role of human resources in particular, you would want to take care of the employees because they're the lifeblood of the company, just like you are. And so therefore, we want to be very aware of what is going on here. And I don't want to go through all of the response stages here, but I want to make sure that you understand that every now and then when you are stressed, you need to take a breath. You also need to understand that when you see a colleague in any of these stages, you may not feel comfortable addressing it directly, but there are ways to talk to them. A lot of people I know are maybe not that self-aware. So this is where we all come together. So take a breath. The best way, of course, is again the yoga posture, which I already explained. The next best thing, because we can't always just stand up in the office and do this, right? So the next best thing is the breath of life. I recommend you do that whenever you feel a little bit of anxiety come on, when you have a feeling that you want to, I don't know, throw the keyboard against the wall, when you feel like your superior is saying something that you feel is really, really unfair and you'd like to respond. Always first take a breath. And if you can, sit down or stand up, put one hand over your heart and the other hand over what we like to call our tummy. And then you take a deep breath in. When you take the deep breath in, you're actually taking it in sort of almost from your tummy. You're inhaling, of course, through the mouth, but you're going to pull the air in all the way. And that means your tummy is actually expanding when you do that. And when you do that, you then hold that breath at about the count of 3, and then you release it. You do that a few times. Then you can actually take your hands off and still focus on the breath. If you just focus on the breath, the adrenaline will calm down. Your logical thinking capabilities will come back. And in here, in this example, of course, you also see shake out. I'll show that in a moment because that is something we need to do together. These are simple exercises that I personally have done and do whenever I'm stressed. So I'm living proof that they actually work. And we, of course, know that any kind of wellness is individual because we all react differently to stress, as you just saw, while at the same time, we all need to come together. And so we need to know ourselves. That means we need to reflect. We need to reflect and think, okay, what's going on? Sharing a quick example, there was a time in my life when I was extremely stressed. Well, how did I realize, other than I knew anyhow? That was one day when I came home and my cat jumped on the table and I started yelling at my cat. That to me was an aha moment that, oh my gosh, I'm really, really stressed. And then you have to begin figuring out what works best for me. You may not know the answer, but you now know some of the things that are happening. You know that you're stressed. So I always recommend talking to somebody at this point and say, okay, I'm stressed. I don't know what to do about it. Most of the coping styles that exist out there, one is task oriented, one is emotion oriented, and one is distraction oriented. Maybe you know which one you are, maybe not. Typical physical coping techniques are exercise, meditation, diet, sometimes probably dancing. And just this morning, I asked a question on Facebook, actually, and I said, what do you do to get peace of mind? It was fascinating because 4 people were talking about taking a walk. And that is really, really important. And meditation, by the way, does not mean that you have to sit down in the yoga posture and do meditation for half an hour. But you need to know your stress, your overwhelm. You need to know what are you really resenting? And how do you get joy, peace, and harmony back? That means you have to figure out what actions cause you stress. When you're overwhelmed, how do you react? And you may have experienced resentment. And usually, again, what happens is that adrenaline just starts going. The next step is to look at tolerations. We often love to do the blame game, which was one of the indicators earlier, right? Well, is it really their fault? Are you the only one tolerating something that they are doing, or are you maybe doing something that they're also having to tolerate? When we're in the work environment, we all have different preferences. So when we all have different preferences, it becomes really important to understand that I may be listening to instructions that our superior gives us, and I'm writing down notes. Somebody else might doodle. Somebody else might not take any notes. None of those is right or wrong. So we have to start thinking about what stresses me, why does it stress me, and when do I stress? And then, and this is probably the key of all of this, in addition to the action steps, is what do I do when that happens? The real question is, what is within my power? You cannot change the people that are driving on the road. You cannot change the way that certain things have to be done in the office. There is a process in which they have to get done. You have to be at the office at a certain time. There are tasks that have to be fulfilled. Those you probably can't change. But maybe you can change some of the things on how you do it or who you do it with. So I came up with this formula, which actually a lot of what I'm sharing with you, I've presented and worked with first responders. So this is all these are all things that work for first responders who I think we all agree have a very stressful life in general. So A plus B equals C. A, that is anything that is not within your power. All the things that I just mentioned. You have to have a job, you have to pay the bills, you have to turn things in accordance with the timeline. B, that's within your power. You react and you try and change your perspective. You avoid the blame game. These are things that you can pay attention to. And sometimes it's best to have a coach or a counselor help you with that, because we tend to all be very, very set in our ways. And taking that breath of life in between, because that will help you not overreact, but actually figuring out a response. C, therefore, then is the consequence of everything that just occurred. Do you decide what is within your power and what is not in your power? How do you go from there? That's the background. Those are some action steps. Daily action steps when you've realized that you are stressed. You need to create your own pattern. Again, the tree posture. And I would love for us to do that here in a minute. Then other recommendations, very, very simple. Fresh air. If you can, instead of yelling at your boss or your team member, take a short walk outside. If your office is nowhere around any park area, use the parking lot. If you're in a building downtown, there is no parking lot, just walk into the hallway. Get away for a moment and take a breath. If you have 5 minutes, and most of us have 5 minutes somewhere in between, you can go to a room, you can sit down, you can close your eyes. All of those things are really, really easy to do. And you may be able every now and then to set up a little headset and you can start actually listening to music. Now, even if you are in an area where you have cubicles, that is something you're often allowed to do because you're allowed to take a break in between work. In some offices, and this might be a good idea for some HR people, how about you allow people to play meditation music in the background while they're working, just very, very slow. I always have that on when I need to focus. Now, the trick in that, of course, is that maybe somebody else gets crazy when they hear meditation music. So you have to balance out the preferences again, right? You have to figure out what works for the individual. And the best way, again, to do that is really just by saying, okay, this works for Joe and this works for Nancy. Nothing works for everybody. We need to negotiate around this. And then the other thing that I keep mentioning is shaking out the stress. And that is something that has been proven to work. If you cannot take a walk, if you cannot walk up and down the stairs, if you cannot listen to music, shaking the stress out is wonderful. And it's crazy because you're almost beginning to be like a child again in that situation. So if you have your own office, you can close the door. If you don't have your own office, go to the restroom, go to the staircase. I don't care. And then you just stand up and you just start shaking it all out. Really, really crazy, shaking it all out. Because what that does is very simple. Number one, you feel really stupid when you do that, especially in front of the camera. But number two, what it does is that adrenaline that came up is now being shaken out. And what I recommend after that, and that is something that we do on energy healing, is you just strike it all off. Because think about it, when you're walking around and there's dust, the dust comes and it falls down, but there are some dust particles here. So when you're shaking all that aggression out, some might land on you. So you want to get rid of that. All of that takes you maybe 2 minutes. And I know you're allowed to go to the restroom while you're at work. Those are some things that really, really help. Now, that's what you can do immediately at work. And one of the things I want to just go back to for a second is I used to have to go to meetings, and I knew what would happen in the meetings. I would go in and we would talk for 2 hours about an issue that could have been handled in 10 minutes. That's how I felt. Now, all the information was important, but I felt like this was really not pertinent to me. So you can imagine that before I went into this meeting, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to waste 2 hours. Okay. So I was already stressed before walking in. So I did two things. Number one, I took a deep breath in and out. And because I started what is called the breath of life, I just focused on the breath of life and I sat down. And then I actually also put my hands on my thighs and I just looked and listened, but I was completely focused on my breath. Therefore, the preference of some of the people in the room that may not agree with my preferences on how to hold a meeting did not bother me. And of course, that doesn't happen overnight. You have to practice that a little bit. Now those are some of the things you can obviously do at work. Then you still have to drive home. So maybe you had a stressful day at work. Maybe you couldn't talk to anybody. Then you get in the car, you're driving, and it's even more stressful. Now, do you want to bring that home? Probably not. So maybe before you go home, if you live with other people, you may want to take a short walk in nature or sit in the car a little longer before you leave the car and go into the house. I also highly recommend, if you can do this, again, the shakeout always works. It looks stupid, but it works. Take a shower. Just take a shower. You may think you don't need a shower, but there's, again, something about the shaking things out, taking a shower, and cleaning off whatever happened. When you are stressed, one of the most important things is that you have alone time, because you are going to overreact to anything anybody says. Now, if you then fall into some of the other categories, that it's not just the daily stress about preferences, that it's not just every now and then you get a little angry, then you need to talk to a professional. And that professional will guide you into what is next. Maybe it is your heart. Maybe you are obese. Maybe there's something else going on. Maybe there's some kind of trauma that you're unaware of. All of those things come together in situations where we feel out of control. So we need to take back the control with some of the examples that I gave, A plus B equals C, and then we need to get some help. Why is that important? Again, it impacts everybody, every single person. When, again, I'm going to give you a personal example. I used to have a lot of headaches, and that was because of the situation that I was living in. At one point, I had almost a migraine, but I had committed to giving a class. So I went into the class, but I had such a bad headache, I could barely think. Now, I was holding most of the class, I was doing okay, but then after about an hour, I said, okay, this is the exercise, take it home, turn it in next time. At the end of that night, even though I was holding it together, number one, I was exhausted. I was barely able to drive home, which of course means I was a danger on the road. And number two, I got emails from everybody in the class asking how I was, because they could feel I wasn't well and they were now worried. So that was the ripple effect. Again, in the workspace, just one person feeling stressed or feeling unheard will create a ripple effect, because we're all individuals. So we need to try and address that as soon as possible for the individual and then for the team, because what we don't want is to have that negative ripple effect that all of a sudden one person is stressed, two people are stressed, four people are stressed, the whole team is stressed. Now the work that team is supposed to do is not getting done. They're just arguing. Half of them are not coming to work, not because they're bad people, but they're just stressed. They can't deal with it. So we need to address that. And I actually was funny because this morning I read a tweet, and I forget by who, but it was a CEO of a big company. And he was sort of pointing out something about the salary and that people get. And the last sentence was, the lifeblood of a company are the people, not the CEO. And that's, of course, especially in HR, where HR usually gets bombarded with trying to have to deal with both arenas, with the leadership, the management, and let's not forget, the people who are stressed. And I cannot imagine being in that kind of stressful situation. So I think HR people probably need a lot more wellness than they often get. But these are sort of some of the simple ideas as well as the background that I have for you. And again, we need to create our own action plan. I do have 2 sheets that I would love to share. I'm going to plug them, I think, into the chat if that's okay. And I might try to pull them up as well. Because these are, oh, I can't do that. No, I can't do that. Okay. It doesn't allow me to do that just because I don't have it in the Dropbox. I actually have it on my desktop. So I'm just going to try and pull one of them up for you. This might be a good little thing if you're working with people on stress. Just have to find it, of course. There we go. What you want to do is you might actually want to create a little action brainstorming sheet. And it's just taking a moment to come up. So let me try and see if I can share that with you. It's very simple. You don't have to use this, but it's all about the awareness that you actually can take control of this. Okay. So if you're thinking A, B, C, all right, what are the things that are going on? Stop what definitely stresses me. If I can. If I can't, can I minimize how it stresses me? Keep doing. This is working for me. Do more of the breathing. Or I've never shook out anything. Why don't you start doing that? And you can, of course, find other items to put on there. You can do one for just category A, what is not under my control. You can do one just for category B. I can control all of these. But it helps if people see that they have control. And then they, of course, will still need a little bit of help with how to control it. Because again, it's all very, very individualized. So this is really what I wanted to present. And I hope that some of the background, even though I jumped over some of the data, I have all of the resources as well. If you'd like some of those, if you'd like the links to take some of those assessments for yourself or share with your employees or with your friends, be happy to share that with you. But that is sort of where I would like to end it and see if there are any questions or any more tips I can give for how to deal with stress.
Wow. I love this presentation. Let me tell you why. Is that we really focus on, at the very beginning, on things we need to be paying attention to.
Mhm.
And in the heat of the moment, when we're under stress, we're not thinking, oh, I'm reacting like this because I'm all stressed out. But
Mhm.
if we start paying attention to those things, we will minimize the reactions to it. And
Mhm.
I know you showed an awful lot of videos or slides through it. And I just want to remind the viewer who is watching this as a recording, um, there's a wonderful little thing called a pause button and a rewind button. So feel free to go back and pause on those and read the content and the information. It's great stuff. I want to open it up for anyone who's with us live. If you have any questions, feel free to, you can either put them in the chat box or you can just unmute yourself and ask the questions. So I'm going to give you that opportunity now for those who want to do it.
And I do want to add something else, that because of course I try to focus on the workplace specifically.
Yeah.
But what you just mentioned, paying attention. Um, some of the first responders that I worked with, and I didn't use that image here, they sometimes don't remember coming home or
Mm.
taking their shoes off. They sometime in the middle of the night wake up on the couch and they don't remember how they got there. So whatever happens at work, you need to trace it in regards to your actions at home. And if you call up a colleague and they're saying, oh, I don't know, I just ate 2 boxes of Cheerios, that means they're overeating. So
Mhm.
again, we need to also trace what we're doing when we're at home. And when we're waking up, we're not sure how we got there, and nobody in the house knows how we got there. Anything of that would really would really be important, just to pay attention to and then start taking action towards.
We do have a question. I want to go ahead and read it. How do you translate some of this for children with regards to the pandemic and its impact?
Pretty much the same way.
Hmm.
And that is not a cop out. So thanks for that question. Because children in particular right now are stressed. And what they're doing is they're using an escape.
Hmm.
The escape for many of the children right now is video games. So if your child plays a lot of time, spends a lot of time on video, that is a very good chance that they're getting stressed.
Hmm.
And of course, it depends on the age as well. Then it is the way that they are talking to you. Okay. If you just ask a question like, what do you want for dinner? And they go, I don't care. Okay. They're stressed. They may think, oh, I'm focused on my video game or I'm focused on reading or the movie. But that's a reaction because normally they don't talk to you like that.
Hmm.
So, and there's just been an NBC study, especially about young girls in college, how they're suffering emotionally and physically and socially. Kids also right now, they're beginning to gain weight, and it's not even necessarily that they're overeating. We often see people like trying to lose weight, but they're not. It has nothing to do with the physical. They're holding on to everything. So if you're noticing that your child is gaining weight and you're watching what they're eating, and they are outside playing, so they get enough exercise, they're not all eating sugar, but they're gaining weight, they're holding on to stuff. Most important with kids, with or without pandemic, is talking to them. That's the
Hmm.
most important thing. And there are, of course, right now, in general, there are a lot of parents who don't talk to their kids, have to throw that in. But especially right now, if you're stressed and you don't know how to deal with it, how you're going to try and de-stress your kid. And then, turning around what Keisha brought up, now imagine you're a parent, you know your child is stressed, you're not sure how to deal with it, and you have to go to work while you're thinking about your kid.
Yeah.
That is, enormous stress. So I hope that answered the question.
I want to chime in on some of this also is that depending upon the age of the child, they don't understand what the word stress is.
Yep.
They really don't. They understand that something is pressing on them. Maybe they feel like they're drowning or they're just acting out weird. They just
Mhm.
don't understand things. Teaching them that breath exercise and particularly the game of
Mhm.
shaking it out and going through that and teaching it as a game over and over again
Mhm.
so that even if you're cooking in the kitchen and your kid is because you can tell that they're stressed out is just to be able to stop and say, oh, let's do the shakeout game. And
Yep.
it's a great tool to give them. And I'd also kind of teach them where it's appropriate and not appropriate necessarily to
Right.
play that game, but
Yeah.
there are ways to absolutely support them with it. And in the workplace, the fact of the matter is we are alive, which means we have stress.
Mhm.
It's just part of life. But knowing how we react to it and having those tools in the workplace, especially because we're focusing on that really today, is um, that can eliminate a lot of the problems that are cropping up
Mhm.
between communication and being, just being aware of it. And, the fact that there are some people who will be silent and not tell you that that meditation music that you're playing very softly is really irritating them and making them more stressed. So being able to have these
Mhm.
tools to help open those doors of communication, I think are just really key.
Yeah. Well, and though I think you define wellness also has critical conversations or conversations in the workplace.
Hmm.
This is a conversation that
Yeah.
needs to be had.
Yeah.
Um, it's the approach of what do you need more of, the appreciative inquiry approach. What do you need more of in order to feel less stressed at work?
Hmm.
And the reason why we would ask that at work is in order to decrease sick leave, to decrease the stress, and to improve not just the atmosphere, but the productivity.
Hmm.
And that people actually want to come to work because this is going to sound bad or weird, but it is a safe place. I
Hmm.
don't have to worry. So, for that, critical conversations and team building are important. And that again means you need to understand each other's preferences. And that can definitely help with the stress level as well.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning conversations in the workplace. We have an arrangement with a provider in our network, Lori Reichelhow. Lori is a sought after speaker for the Society for Human Resource Management. They go to her and say, "Hey, can you come up with a topic on gossip? Can you come up with a topic on backstabbing?"
Mhm.
These conversations in the workplace that a lot of people think have nothing to do with wellness. What they don't understand is everything has to do with wellness. But we bring in Lori once a month to do a conversations in the workplace webinar for free for the employers. It is by far our most popular event.
Mhm.
We typically are sold out every single time. When I say sold out, it's free, so it's people reserving a seat. And that's been a really important thing, is to help us also understand what are some of the hot topics going on in the workplace, and then being able to do programs like this where we're intertwining with it. And then, I want to give a plug is starting in June 2021. So if you're watching this video after June of 2021, you weren't going to want to go back to our archives to find it. Natalie Forest will be hosting something called Mindful Minute, and that'll be a 30-minute program once a month on the second Tuesday of the month at 2 o'clock Mountain Time, calculated out for your time zone from there. And it's sharing mindful tips and self-care ideas
Mhm.
and things. And then on the fourth, it's not Tuesday, did I say Tuesday? Thursdays, second Thursday of every month. And then on the fourth Thursday of every month, we will have another guest coach who will be stepping in with a whole nother focus. And these will be 30-minute programs that are great escapes for the workplace.
Mhm.
So all of this stuff is intertwining and just accentuating everything that you said here today.
Mhm. And I just want to add one thing because when we're talking about wellness, I say it's holistic.
Hmm.
And you brought up all the different areas. Got to understand that the stress doesn't just have to come from being at the workplace
Right, right.
because there's financial stress,
Hmm.
right? Can I pay my bills today because my husband lost his job? Those stresses influence it, and
Hmm.
that means financial wellness, right? So there are all these degrees of wellness that all
Yeah.
are being put onto a person that then get stressed, get depressed, et cetera, and they
Yeah.
have to have an outlet
Yeah.
somewhere.
We call those the 8 dimensions of wellness. They are physical, emotional, financial, social, spiritual, environmental, occupational, and intellectual. And in no particular order, that's just how I have it memorized. And starting in June, also June 2021, we will be focusing on each dimension once a week on our Wellness Wednesday Lunch Bunch, which is broadcast live on Facebook, and talking about it because each dimension has two levels. One is very basic, are these basic needs being met? If they're not being met, you got major stress going on. And, even environmental. Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have
Yeah.
food on the table? Do you have clothes on your back? Occupational. Do you have the training that you need? Are you in the right job? Where do you want to go? And then we have the ideal, and that is the next level, and that is where we get to add all our personal needs to it. And so we'll be focusing on those every single week starting in June of 2021. And I'm pretty excited for it because we
Yeah.
have not done this before. It's always been a
Right.
specific topic like healthy gardening. But this will be something that we can really explore, um, and just elevate the awareness of how everything is intertwined. Stress does go into each one of those dimensions of
Mhm,
wellness, because if
mhm.
you're not having those basic needs met, or you're having any strife,
Yeah.
it's absolutely tied with stress. And you said one thing about financial wellness, and if I ask anyone, what do you think is the number one thing that
Mhm.
employees say they need the most
Yep.
help with? The answer is typically financial wellness. They need to help pay the bills, and I'm going to tell you that no, that's not it. The number one thing employees tell us is sleep.
Mhm,
We're going to be talking about this on the third Tuesday in June in our Wellness as an Employee Benefit Program
mhm.
event that we hold. And when you think about it, the employees are saying it's sleep. We know it's probably financial wellness. It's some other thing. They may be not able to sleep because they can't pay the mortgage that month. They
Right.
may not be able to sleep because a family member is sick. They may not be
Mhm,
able to just sleep because they've got a bad relationship with their boss, whatever it may be. But it's all stress, it's all intertwined. But we're going to be addressing things from the level
mhm.
of, okay, employees are saying it's sleep. The solution is not taking an Ambien. The
Yes.
solution is the yoga pose that you introduced here. The solution is the breath work. The solution is working with somebody on how to budget and get out of debt.
Mhm,
So it's a
mhm.
wide variety of things.
Yeah. And I think a lot of employers are really trying to
Yes.
provide resources because I
Yeah.
know, especially right now, what is it called, the distributed workforce? It hasn't gotten
Is
easier
that what it's
right
called
now.
now?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because we're distributed all over the place. But I also know that there are a lot of employers who like have a rec room or have a garden where employees
Hmm.
can go. Those are great,
Hmm.
and you need to make sure that they're being used
Hmm.
because again, there sometimes is that fear factor of, well, if I go there, what would people say? So it always comes
Yes.
back to communication and feeling safe, and I think that's to me always in my experience where the HR people are so, I mean, to me they're the key people in any company because
Hmm.
everything comes together there.
Yeah.
And when they trust them, then it can all flow out and it just helps release the stress for everybody, maybe not for the HR key people, but it does help to have those,
Yeah.
but you need to make sure that they're also being used.
And those the HR folks are oftentimes a department of one,
Mhm.
and they don't have any sounding boards or know where to turn to. They've got an awful lot on their plate. And, when it comes to making sure that the employees are happy, healthy, and thriving, they don't always know where to turn to or where to
Right.
start. And that's one of the things that we have worked really hard to build, is that wellness center on our website at Udefine Wellness, because we have the resources. And that's the message that we're wanting to get out to everyone, is that the resources are there for you to tap into. Many of them are free on our website, and just be the one-stop place to go to say, hey, I need help. I mean, that's why we have several hundred health and wellness professionals in our network, with 130 modalities or more that we have. I'm learning about a new one almost every single day, so the number keeps going up. But that's why we have such a wide range, and so that hey, hey, you need to take care of these employees, but
Mhm.
you don't have to do all the work. We've done the work for you. You just go
Mhm.
over and tap into it and be available. So
Yeah.
thank you for that segue. I appreciated
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is true. I mean, how do you do all of it?
Mhm.
You need help, and there has to be follow up. And yeah, one of the things that I know you've done is pathfinders, because that's the one thing. Just because I'm stressed, I don't know necessarily
Yeah.
what that means or how to eliminate. Maybe I can't do the breath. Maybe I freak out when I do the breath of life. So maybe I need to see a doctor. Maybe I need to do some spiritual work. I mean, whatever it
Mhm.
is,
Yeah.
we need to dig deeper. And like you said, one person can't do that. So
No.
yeah,
No.
there's a lot that's on HR folks.
There's a lot that's on HR folks. With that being said, I'm going to actually share the screen this
Woohoo!
time. Ay, 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 ay. I want to remind everyone of Natalie's contact information. Let me get my screen up right. I urge you to reach out to her if she can be of service to you in any way, shape, or form. And she's an excellent resource. This woman has a long list of accomplishments that I cannot go into here, and definitely someone to reach out to. I also want to share with you, if my mouse will work here, there we go. We are unable to do these things for free without our sponsors, and we greatly appreciate every single one of them who comes to the table and helps us out. We have a variety of founding sponsors who have been with us for a long time now and helped us get our start. And they are typically in the areas of nonprofits and actually some product oriented. And we give a nod to them and say thank you to them. And this specific event has been sponsored by Stephanie Luaris, who is the owner of Heart and Soul Fitness and Wellness in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. And I'm going to tell you, she has some excellent video programs. And she just told us this morning she's going to be doing a road show and taking it out. Taking her passion for healthy living out there, and where you start at where you are at and not where someone else is at. Also about other events that we host, because we host at least 3 things every week. We do host employer or workplace oriented programs every single month. The first Tuesday of every month is the Wellness Committee. That's where we get some of the providers in our network together and we brainstorm on a specific topic on things that an employer can put in place immediately, free or not, but giving you the ideas to go with it. All of these are live on, or they're not all live on Facebook, but this one is live on Facebook. It'll also be in our Facebook library and recorded for YouTube, so you can go back to previous episodes. Our first one on June 1st will be about mental health and self-care activities. So it's really going to tie into what Natalie talked about here. Second Tuesday is the ever popular Conversations in the Workplace that we previously discussed. The third Tuesday is we are going into wellness as an employee benefit. This is where we are going to share with you what employees tell us that they don't tell you, and how to do and be better. And that's the first one that we're going to be doing is on sleep. And then, of course, the fourth Tuesday of every month is a Taste of Wellness, where you can sample a workplace wellness program. But we do a number of things live on Facebook. And if my animations want to work for me, every Wednesday is Wellness Wednesday Lunch Bunch. This is fun. It feels like you're eavesdropping on a conversation in my fictitious living room here, where we bring together the providers in our network and we talk about a specific topic. It can range from healthy gardening to diabetes to caring for our parents. And then every Friday we actually dive into a modality. If you want to know what eutaptics is, we have done a video on what is eutaptics. If you want to know what intuitive eating is, we've got that scheduled for in the future. So there's all kinds of things that goes into the video dictionary on our website. And our most recent one is every Friday morning, we are live on Clubhouse, where we are talking with some of the change leaders in health and wellness and finding out what they're doing. Because what I know is I can have 10 life coaches in a room together and not 2 of them do the exact same thing. So we want to hear about the brilliance that they're bringing into the world. It's fun, it's engaging, and we do invite you to join us on Clubhouse. And if to find our events, you can go to our website, our Facebook page, and our LinkedIn page. And with that, I'm going to stop this share and just say thank you to everyone for being here. If you have any more questions after we stop the live recording, you are welcome to ask those. Natalie will stick around for a moment. But Natalie, I want to say thank you for being here and doing this. As always, I always love it when you bring your brilliance and excellence into the room and share it with all of us. It is a terrific gift, and I am grateful for it today. And for those who have joined us live, thank you as well. And for those watching this recording, we thank you as well. Wander around where you have found this recording, because we have a ton of videos that we do. We host a lot of events every week to build this library on YouTube and on our website and on social media. So thank you for being with us. And with that being said, we hope to see you on another event soon.